All right, this is James of the Giant Economy, and today we're going to be talking about energy and materials with the wonderful Tracy's Shoe Charts weekly oil and gas and materials update. So I'm just going to go through this again. This will be attached in if you're in my email group. This will be attached in there for your reading. If not, I do have a subscription to get this now, and so this is kind of free for you guys type thing. So under the radar, she brings up a really important fact, one that you, me, and I guess normal people wouldn't really, that aren't in the industry, it wouldn't get on our radar. She talks about the Mississippi River, right? And so she talks about the drought that's coming across, and so let's dive into that. There we go. Close that. There we go. All right. So many of you might not know that, I guess 2020 really revealed this, but we get all of our stuff from somewhere else. Okay. And transportation to and from that is a big thing. And a lot of us, 2020, I think, woke a lot of us up to that as supply chains started to get disrupted and things started to go downhill quickly, get more expensive, or just not be on the shelves, right? So the mighty Mississippi River is a huge, huge river in the U.S. that basically goes all the way from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico, and it has a ton of tributaries and other rivers that just connect to it. Okay, it's a huge river, and so it's been used since basically Europe colonized America as a trade route. Okay, her point on this, and I'll let you read it, is that as the Mississippi as droughts worsen across the Midwest and the Mississippi River, it starts to dwindle, right? So you can't put as many boats on it. This affects now that, but the heavier boats, they may not be able to go down through parts of it like they once were. So what happens? You either can't use those heavier boats, and you have to use 3 or 4 lighter boats to go through, or you use some sort of land transportation, right? If you go by rail, you're limited to where the rails are at. If you go by truck, well, you're not very limited, but man, is it costly. So, as she talks about, this river is very important in transporting grain, fertilizers, oil products, coal, iron, steel, gravel, all sorts of stuff type thing. Here is low river levels have caused a huge spike in barging rates. Here are the barging rates that are just flying up. Why is this a huge problem? Because typically, barging or transporting via water is about 1/13 the cost of transporting it via truck. Okay, it is a little bit cheaper than rail. Not marginally. It's cheaper in rail because you can actually bulk move more and use less energy down a river, right? Just think about floating the lazy river. That's a lot easier than walking. It's a lot easier than biking, right? So because it typically it's about the 13th of the cost. So, but when these barge rates go up because there's a huge supply and demand discrepancy, well, they're going to pass that price along to the consumers, right? All right, here we go. We all have our crops coming in the Delta. Said Gibson, last week we harvested about 9% of our grain from the Delta and the Mississippi, for that matter. All the grain would normally go into an elevator and be loaded into a barge in the Mississippi River and go up and down the river. We have trucks loaded down with grain all over the Mississippi waiting, not just the Mississippi, Louisiana, and all over the country, up and down the river, waiting to get on these barges. So there's a backup, right? So what this might spell out in the future is either shortages or high prices, one or the other, right? Maybe a mixture of the two. High prices go up a little bit, and they might not be on the shelf type thing. Crude oil. Okay, so far she says oil refineries along the Mississippi are not affected so far, right? Because again, if you're drilling crude, I'm down here in Texas. West Texas has a huge patch. There's some in Louisiana that have patches. There's Oklahoma, but there's also some patches up here and to the north, east as well. And actually, this is one of the issues that the pipeline, it pops out of my head, that Biden had shut down early in his presidency that wasn't even completed, didn't carry a drop of oil. Keystone, there we go. It was going to take some oil from up here north in Canada that is it's not worth it price per price to get it right now because you have all the refineries are down here, okay, in the coast. So you have to basically ship it down to the refineries, get it refined, and then it can go out and be sold, okay? It's hard enough to get that it's if the refineries are up here, they can make money, they would do it, but they can't because refineries cost billions of dollars and take like 5 years to build out, right? So they just ship it down, and the Keystone Pipeline would have made that really easily. Now, I mean, they can use it in Mississippi and such, but most of the time it's just going to be on hold, or they're going to use the Mississippi to actually get it. So she says, for the moment, it's not affecting it, but it could in the future. Coal. She goes into coal. I'm not going to get into coal, but basically about 35% of U.S. thermal coal for export travels on the Mississippi. So this will significantly affect the market, said Ernie Thrasher, CEO of X Coal Energy and Resources, a major U.S. exporter. So it's going to, it may not affect you and I directly, is what this is saying, but it's going to affect energy around the world because coal is a very cheap source of energy, very dirty but cheap. Okay, so you'll have India and China and other countries that can't get access to oil and gas, that are starting to burn coal. Ironically, Germany is one of these countries now that used to be like the big green pusher. They're starting to burn coal because they want to get off fossil fuels per se. Ironic, I know. It'll be a big disruption to the supply. So this landlocks coal, and it will send prices downward. Interesting. Because people, if they can't get coal, if you can't ship coal, people are going to look to other forms of energy, right? So she's saying this will probably send prices downward for coal. Fertilizer, I'll let you read that, but basically it's going to affect fertilizer as well. Let's look at some of her charts of interest of the week. China, the world's biggest oil importer. The world's biggest oil importer, as in they consume the most amount of oil that they bring in from other sources. So they're buying it from Russia, from the U.S., from Venezuela if they get their act in order, right? 10.19 million BPD and up to 650 BPD from August, the strongest month since May. This is good news. Why is this good news? Because we're looking for a rebound from China's demand for their zero COVID policy lockdowns, right? So what she's saying is that China had some zero COVID lockdown policies. This is from basically Xi Jinping, or their leader right now, and who is in the middle of getting elected again, and it seems like he's just going to have I think a third term or something for another 5 years, which breaks their funny fact, it breaks all of their rules, but hey, they're going to do it anyway because he's in power and he is I can use my words carefully here. He is how should I put this? He is the one that will preside and has all the power over China at the moment, right? Until he passes away or decides to willfully step down, I think he's going to be the leader. His cohorts will continue to follow him, right? So she's going to be in power in China for as long as he deems fit, right? So in that, when you're running for an election, you want to please the people. So what they did is they shut down. They had a zero COVID policy to shut down everything. What does this mean? Well, when you shut down factories don't use energy, right? Your demand for energy goes down. Now that she is pretty much saying, yeah, he's already won before he won, if you get my drift, they're starting to open it back up, and their imports are showing that their need. What does this mean for oil? It means it's going to go up, right? There's more people using it than there were in the past, type thing. So here we go. Here is Europe's crude and condensate imports, and rose the highest in January. So basically, you can see the countries and everything. Russia's big. The Caspian Sea, which is basically where you get not light crude, but Brent crude from. You've got lots of Africa and others. You've got Middle East, you've got North America and South America. So here's what I really want you to get from this graph. And you can see all through the color charts. You can see who the major players are. Russia, the Middle East, and North America, as in the U.S. and Canada. Mexico's not really, they do produce some, but not a ton, right? This is mostly the U.S. So those are the big players, right? Africa and a conglomerate has a lot of, but that is the whole country or the whole continent of Africa. So those are the major players. So when you think about, hey, what could go wrong with oil? What could force oil to go up or go down? It's just supply and demand, right? Either people stop demanding to use oil, they stop pumping gas at the pump, they use less, right? Which would make oil go down, or we produce more, which would make oil go down. Okay, who are going to be the people to watch? Well, it's going to be Russia, North America, and the Middle East. Those are going to be your big three right now. Africa, I know it's got a lot on the chart, but it's seemingly in when you look at the details, it's not. There's not just one country making the decisions, right? That's why I'm not putting it in there. But these three areas, the U.S., the Middle East, who makes it basically OPEC plus, they make their decisions together, and Russia. Those are the big three decision makers. Another thing that you don't see much of here is you don't see Venezuela, right? That's what I want to bring your attention to. You don't. Venezuela, if anything, would be South and Central America, and that probably would be a good portion of Venezuela. But you don't see Venezuela coming out as its own, even though it is a powerhouse for oil and gas. It was the #1 producer of some of the best oil in the world until communism took over and basically destroyed it. So Venezuela's kind of out. That's why I don't really talk about them very much. But I want you to get those from that graph, right? And then as she says, it's starting to uptick the imports. Excuse me. My mistake. You know what? I read that completely wrong. These are imports, not production. So you know what? Scratch all that I just said. I messed all that up. So these are what what they're importing as far as oil comes in. So here's her synopsis. Who's the biggest beneficiary of the U.S.? This is extremely bullish for crude. As soon as the SPR releases are completed due to the interrupted midterms, we will likely see oil prices move higher, unless of course they announce another huge release. Here's the issue with that. Like everybody in the oil and gas industry is saying this. Yeah, oil is going to go up next year. Mark my words. 2023, you will see some of the highest oil prices, or we are set to see some of the highest oil prices you have ever seen. My guess is it's going to definitely go above $100 a barrel. Probably we may crack 120, 125 again, regardless if there's another war or not. This is not counting if there's a war between China and Taiwan, or the U.S. gets pulled into something, or World War III breaks out. What do you think it's going to do for oil? It's going to send it through the roof. Like you're going to have $180 oil during the war and everything, because countries are going to use oil to fuel the war. It's hard to get soldiers and planes in the air, right, without oil. So next year is going to be really, really bad. Good for me because I'm invested in oil. Bad for everybody else. But the good news is you can change that. Just contact me and do it soon because things are running out. But we're going to see how oil prices move higher, unless, of course, they have another huge release. Here's the issue. By the time Biden is done releasing the oil, we're only going to have about 30% of what we had, right? So even if he makes another release, let's say he puts it down to 15 or 10%, which in my mind is getting into the area of sabotage for the U.S. and dare I say almost treasonous, because you are taking our reserves that were meant for wartime efforts and you're just using them for political gain. And if he puts even more on the market for more political gain, right? There's only so much he can do. He's only delaying it. Okay, and even with oil at like hovering around $80 to $90 a barrel, I mean that's not low oil prices. Okay, that is medium high, on a scale of 1 to 10, that's like a 6 or 7, right? Low oil prices are around $50 a barrel. That's kind of would be like a 3 or 4. Okay, so oil is set to go up. Like, it's all bullish for crude. If you had to place some money on something, this is not financial advice or anything, but I'm saying oil is a good one to do. And she gives her thoughts on her strike prices or future calls and stuff like that, and USO call options and stuff like that. So it talks about aluminum and aluminum imports. So this is not important to oil, but aluminum is used in a variety of things. What the current administration is doing is thinking of limiting Russian aluminum imports. What is that going to do? Well, it's going to send all the price of aluminum up in the U.S., right? If this goes through, it'll be a huge deal. With Europe's aluminum production down 50% due to high natural gas prices. Again, they have to smelt it somehow. They have to melt the aluminum down somehow. Aluminum smelting is very intensive. The world will force global markets to revamp non-Russian metal volumes to solve the West requirements would be extremely challenging. So she gives a few stocks and stuff like that, tickers to watch for it. If it gets really bad, she's saying she'd be very interested in U.S. aluminum-based companies, which could, go up, if not already, type thing. And these show a chart of aluminum imports. Let's see here. Let's get down to diesel. This is the big one, all right? And this is the unforeseen one that you and I, as normal consumers, we're probably not going to see, right? If you haul any type of freight, if you're a farmer, this is big on your mind. There is a global diesel shortage, and it's growing. And I've heard about this for a week or two. I just wanted to see where it went. And if you've ever been in France, you know about strikes. Strikes happen all the time in France. In fact, there's a joke when I was traveling a lot before 2020. Their friends would tell me, "Don't take Air France because we nickname it Air Chance, Chance, because you don't know if there's going to be a strike or not." Really, and so your flight might get delayed a few hours, a few days, a few weeks. Who knows, right? So take something else. But strikes are not uncommon in France. But here is one that is a strike on the refineries in France, and this is making a very big disruption in the diesel that France produces and pushes to the rest of the of Europe, amongst others. Her commentary: these strikes are supposed to be for 2 days, ending September 29th. This happens all the time. It's the 13th of August, and there's still no deal with refinery unions. At the time of this. These strikes, which have been going on for the third week, are now joined by workers in the nuclear power industry. So others are joining it in the industry. So France is actually one of Europe's main producing powers. In fact, it's funny that Germany, I keep talking about Germany because if the U.S. follows the Green New Deal completely to what Germany wants, we will become the new Germany. Germany is facing horrible power issues right now. Like it is said that come this winter, people are going to freeze, and they're not kidding. It's not a joke, and they're actually telling their people to start to collect firewood for the winter. It's sad, and it's all because of the choices their leaders have made towards energy, and that could become the U.S. We don't know, right? We might get a portion of that, but my point is this. Germany has said no to nuclear. They shut on the nuclears down. They're saying no to oil. They're saying they're starting to use natural gas, but they can't produce it, and they're not getting it from Russia, which they kind of signed their life away on that because of the war. So they got to get it from somewhere, and so they're paying a huge amount for it. The ironic thing is that, and this is why I bring it up, of this French strikes joined by workers in the nuclear power industry. What's happening? Germany, instead of having their own nuclear reactors and their own nuclear power, is actually buying it from France, right? And so if France starts to shut down their nuclear power, that means Germany's problems just got a lot worse, because you're going to sell to your own country before you sell to another. So there's not enough to go around. You better have enough firewood. As of today, there are 25,000 2,500 gas stations without fuel, and almost 2,000 gas stations with partial shortages. And she gives maps. That's bad. And what's the difference between a strike? Let me ask you this: a strike and price caps, right? Well, I'll tell you the cliff notes. The results are the same. The difference is strikes, your employees say, hey, we're not going to work, and you are limited on your production, right? You can't do the same amount of work with half the workforce, okay? Secondly, a price caps are a limit from the force limit from the government that says, hey, you can only sell this much. So what are companies going to do if you're saying, hey, we can only make this much profit in a given time period? Well, we're just not going to sell as much, right? We're going to sell up to that profit margin, and we're just not going to sell any more, okay? And so you have the same thing. You have shortages. So if my point is this, if our administration says, oil and gas industry, you are ugly, you are evil, you're taking advantage of the American consumer by costing so much oil, so much at the pump, we're going to limit you on your pricing, right? What's going to happen in America? You're going to see a rebound of the 70s where you would line up and spend 8 hours at the gas station to get a half a tank of gas if they didn't run out by that time. That's what's happening in France right now. Is what will happen in the U.S. if we don't change our energy policy. All right, and you're to go on with these strikes. Europe's larger oil refinery has suffered a malfunction, so they got the jitters. Commentary: this is Europe's largest diesel refinery. This is the one in Rotterdam in Holland, but by Shell, good old Dutch oil company. This is only going to exacerbate the global shortage, especially as Europe tries to wean itself off Russian oil and products, right? I'll let you read the rest of this type thing, but all of it is good. The synopsis: in short, the West is short of heavier crude needed to blend for diesel and an upcoming EU embargo of Russian oil and production December 5th. This is about to get a whole lot worse. Russian crude is heavy crude. We are also short of refining capacity, which the prospects of new refining capacity is coming online looking bleak due to the current administration's policies toward and the energy issue. So here's how I explain to people why energy companies aren't going to expand with this current administration. Let's say you were a teacher and you're in your 5th year of teaching. You're thinking about getting your master's to get a better pay raise and to be a better teacher to your students. And the administration, the U.S., whoever's in charge, the president of the United States at the time, comes out and tells you, hey, we're going to, in 5 years, we're not going to have any teachers in the classroom. We're going to all do it digitally. It'll be good. It'll be refined, but it'll be just like the pandemic to where it'll be all digital, right? And so we're going to eliminate the need for teachers. Well, number one, you're not going to go get your education, right? Like, you're not going to go get a higher education. You're going to pay like $20,000-$40,000 for 2 years of work to not have a job in 5 years, right? No, you're just going to say, okay, we're just going to sit where we're at right now, and we're just going to see what happens. Number two, if you've got, the ability to take early retirement as a teacher, hey, I'm retiring in a few years, or I have the ability to retire, I'm going to retire before they shut teaching down, so I can retire, right? Number three, if you're in college and you are saying, hey, I'm going to be a teacher in the future, and the current government comes out and says, hey, there's not going to be teachers in 5 years, you're going to change your major, man. You're not going to be stupid. No, you're going to change your major, and you're going to go into accounting, you're going to go into business, you're going to go into engineering, something else, right? So what does that do? It creates a shortage of good qualified teachers now, and a major shortage of any teachers in the future. This is what's happening in oil and gas. This is why I'm so bullish on oil and gas. It's because everything that's happening right now is setting us up for it to just go north, to just rip north, right? Everything that's happening in the world, where energy policy is saying no bad oil and gas, but at the same time we're still using our car to drive to work, right? We don't have a good sufficient other way to get this stuff done. Oil is just going to go up, and I kid you not, they're doing everything they can to pound oil down, and it's still hovering between $80 and $90 a barrel. guess what happens when they run out of ammo? Guess what happens when the SPR has to be refilled or it stops on supply? When China ramps up, when Europe this winter says, hey, I've got to have a ton of energy type thing, it's going to fly up and you're going to pay at the pump, right? Or you're going to have great investments that pay you and you're going to be happy about it. So if that interests you, give me a call. My information, give me a call, give me an email. My information is below. We've got some opportunities coming up. We only have, I think, one more for the next year, for the rest of the year. And then like most oil and gas companies, we're going to take December off type thing. But I would get in now because if you wait until oil jumps $1 a barrel, you're going to be too late. Like the prices aren't going to be worth it. Sellers are going to be wanting to sell at 3 times the amount. It's just, you know, just the way things go type thing. So if this interests you, give me a holler. Thank you for making it all the way through this presentation with me. Like and subscribe, and but more so than that, post a comment. Let me know if this helps you. If you're like, James, I'm never gonna watch your videos again, or James, I'll watch all of them, or hey, that was great, but you know, I still have questions on this. Or you can just say, James, you suck. Either way, hope you have a great day. Hope the beginning of your week is amazing. I'll see you in the other video.